That's how we own it! Welcome to Street Politicians, the place where the streets and politics meet. I'm your host, Mysonne.
And I'm Tamika D, Mallory. So much is happening across this country. We seem like we're in a moment where we're either going to change drastically or people are going to burn this whole country down. So this is a place.
We gonna burn this.
And we hope that that doesn't happen, but it's a place where certainly folks have just decided that enough is enough. And I think it is most incredible to see that people from outside of the country have taken up our issue. In Germany, people have been marching. In Paris, people have been organizing and speaking out. And in fact, I saw a viral video of a woman who lives in Paris who was complaining, like, you know, why is all of this Black Lives Matter stuff happening? I don't care about that. Like, it's not my issue. It's not my family. It's not something I believe in. She went viral. She's probably gonna lose her job. You're gonna lose your job. I love that.
You're gonna lose your job.
You're gonna lose your job. She'll probably lose her job in the next few hours. And so with everything that's happening though, I think what is most painful is that the death, the murder, the assault upon Black lives still has not stopped. And I don't think any of us have it in our minds that just because there's a major movement that the violence against Black bodies would just end. But we're still seeing images of very, very gruesome and traumatizing murder of Black people. And so all the movement that's happening in the world, you got COVID-19, you got so much going on, and yet still Black bodies continue to drop, and America has the blood of our people on these streets. You know, since we last talked, when we were fighting for George Floyd and Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery, and the list goes on and on of those who went before them. Now we have a new case, Rayshard Brooks, right before America's eyes, right on video. We saw that this man was killed. And I don't think that we are so naive or so confused that we don't understand the challenges that was happening in that moment. We know he was drinking. We saw that. We know that he fell asleep behind the wheel because he had too much to drink. We know that once he got into a fight, or once they were attempting to arrest him, that he started to fight the cops, and that he also took the taser and ran away with it. And he pointed the taser at the police. We know all of that. But I think what's at the heart of the conversation, and what many of us as activists and advocates, Mice, have been trying to say, is that the way in which we are handled from start to finish is different from how we see other communities being managed. And so we're going to talk about that because, yeah, we know things, he could have done things different. There's a lot of things that could have happened differently, but he was being harassed from the very moment that the second officer arrived on the scene. And the way in which he was being treated wasn't a de-escalation attempt. It wasn't a community relations attempt. It was an enforcement attempt. And that's something that I think, you know, we have to discuss. 5 people hanging across the nation, 5 different cases of people hanging, in which in each situation, the media keeps trying to say suicide, that these people did harm to themselves. Any other community, if you found 5 white people, particularly young white men, hanging around this nation, people like you and me, Mice, would be in jail. They would lock us up to see if the movement has something to do with the retaliation against white people. Then we see Nakia Crawford, a young woman, 18 years old, just graduated from high school, driving her grandmother somewhere, doing her regular, normal, everyday activities, shot to death at a light in Ohio, in Akron, Ohio. Now, you know, we don't know for sure, but witnesses say that it was a white man in the vehicle that shot her. Many witnesses have said it. So we don't know. They can't say she shot herself. And of course, they would love to say that it was Black on Black crime, but that's not what the witnesses are saying. And so that's, yet another situation that we have to monitor. I know I saw on Sean King's Instagram page that there's a $50,000 reward available for those who are able to help catch the murderer of Nakia Crawford, which is a sad situation. Like I said, she just graduated. Then Trump. I mean, I keep saying this stuff is not isolated. It's very, very much coordinated in terms of how they are choosing cities to go to and the dates that they're choosing to go to these places, both for his campaign events, and now he will accept the nomination in Jacksonville, Florida. Now in Tulsa, Oklahoma, where he's going to be this weekend, and yes, granted, it was supposed to be tomorrow on Juneteenth that he would be having his major event, and they moved it a day because somebody got in touch with him and said, you are actually going to ensure
somebody said you out of your mind,
that there's bloodshed.
yes,
like I'm thinking about how we've been traveling for the last few weeks, and the types of people that I hear on your phone are not like, regular activists. Like they're not really, they don't call themselves activists at all. These is people we don't even see outside in the daytime. And they're calling you like, yo, if homeboy thinks he's going to Tulsa, I'm ready to give it all up. Like it can't happen. So, he moved the date because somebody said this is not going to be good. And thank God they did, but it's still the mere fact that he's going to Tulsa. Understanding the history of Tulsa, knowing that Black Wall Street was there and that town was bombed, and that was where our people were thriving, not just surviving. It was a model for Black America of how to have a community that has wealth and is sustainable without having to beg the state for anything. And it was bombed, literally bombed by the American government on Juneteenth. No, not on Juneteenth. It's 99 years after the bombing. Juneteenth is a different date. This is the day when many Black people, when many Black Africans, were told that we were free from slavery, from enslavement, and we know many did not find out. So there were many people who remained enslaved because they didn't know. But that is the official day when Black people were supposed to know that we were freed from slavery. And so even though the Tulsa bombings didn't happen on that day, the mere fact that you would go to Tulsa, understanding what you represent as an American president, as a white man who's called himself it can't happen. So that's that on that. Jacksonville is another place that they're going to. August 27th or 28th, they're going to be in Jacksonville, and they're going to Jacksonville for the Republican National Convention, where he's going to accept the nomination as their candidate for president. And in that town, the same exact time, there was the anniversary of the axe handle. I think it's the axe. Yeah, axe handle, exactly. That was another time when white people, including law enforcement, murdered Black folks. And there are actual events that happen every August where they are literally commemorating that day and remembering those people who were lost. So this, we're talking about not isolated incidents. How the hell do they choose both of those times in one period? It's not isolated.
I think it's very strategic. I think, if you look at just the Tulsa situation, in and itself was crazy, man. Just when we first heard that he was going there on Juneteenth, you're right, I got a lot of calls and people's like, I'm ready to give it up, yo, I'm going there. Like everybody I knew called me. And and we were already heading to do to DC to do an action, and we was considering, you know, to even change our route to go out there on that day. So it was strategic, I guess. He figured he wants to speak to his African Americans, as he said, you know, and try to pander and try to make it seem like he understands our struggle, you know, and you know, it's Trump is very very strategic, and he plays with marketing. That's his whole thing. It's about how is he gonna market something. You know, when you look at the next place, when we look at where's he going again? You said
to Jacksonville, Florida.
Jacksonville, Florida, and we look about the atrocity that happened there in Jacksonville, and then you look at him going there to speak. So these are times where he's trying to utilize the heartstrings of Black people, and then he's going to try to speak and pander to Black people. In his mind, you know, he doesn't realize that people are already fed up. You know, you can't talk to people when they're dealing with pain, and you're the one who inflicted it. So he has a strategy. So it's a two-pronged strategy. He either riles up his base by letting them know that he's gonna go there and speak on those days, and they see it as a form of disrespect, or he either gets some of us, you know, who are not as conscious and understanding, like, well, you know, he wants to celebrate with us. You know, the president, he's the president. You know, we need to, you know, acknowledge this. So this is what he does, and he does it very strategically all the time. Just like you look at his press conference with this so-called, you know, executive order that really did nothing. You know, just pretty much, in my opinion, a lot of people agree. Some people say, you know, it's a movement in the right direction, but there's no mandates in this executive order. It's only suggestions that most local leaders do not have to follow, and most of them won't follow because they didn't even want those put into law in the first place. You know, and most of them have had that same, they've had the ability to do everything that they put into this executive order. So, you know, he tries to utilize that time and make it seem like, you know, we dealing with prison reform. Let me do something that speaks to that because I'm trying to get reelected. So we're very aware of what this president is doing, man. Like you said, he's our co-organizer, man. Like whenever he does something, it's a reason for us to organize again. So, you know, it's just sad. It's actually just really sad, really sad.
Yeah, it's a sad state of affairs. And I think, like, yes, I try to come up with what's my thought of the day, because I have so many thoughts of the day, of thoughts of the minute, thoughts of the hour. I wonder, have we really truly entered the race war that we've been talking about? And I have to ask that with the second question, are we ready? Like, are we really truly ready for what we're being faced with? Because so many of our own people are just not aware. Like, they're just living their lives. And a lot of that is, you know, it's the media. It's also a survival mechanism where people are like, you know, I don't even want to know. I don't want to know. I don't want to have to face.
Ignorance is bliss.
Yeah, I don't want to have to face the constant brutality and trauma and all that goes along with it. But at the same time,
can't ignore it.
We better be prepared, because something really, really, really heavy is happening, especially when they're starting to find people hanging, people getting shot. Let me tell you, one thing I was thinking to myself the other day, I'm like, yo, they know for sure that if they come outside to these rallies and protests and other things where Pookie and them are like on guard, they know they cannot win. They cannot win. Because our people, we've been killed so much, we've been brutalized so much, we don't really have anything else to lose. So if you come and you decide to show up where we are and you want to face us,
it's not going to be a good decision.
It's not a good thing. It's not.
But you know what I want to say? You know what I want to say? I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, please.
That I don't think, at this moment, you know, I think people are trying to create a race war. But I think at this moment, most people, just people in general, are realizing the pain, you know, the trauma, the effects of white supremacy, even white people. You know, I think everywhere you look in this world, people are screaming Black Lives Matter. They are acknowledging it. I think we are winning a lot of allies, you know. and co-conspirators, as you say. I think so. They're trying to create, and I think what Trump is trying to do is recreate the divide, because that's been his whole strategy with his, his presidency, was to create this divide and make it seem like it's us against them. Just throwing out dog whistles and saying things to rival up his base. And you hear, a lot of the white supremacists like, well, we just waiting for Trump to give us the word, and all he has to do is give us the word. So I think that's what he's trying to do. But I think this moment, George Floyd situation, coupled with so many, Ahmaud Arbery, coupled with so many different things, Breonna Taylor, just looking at where we are in this moment, I think it has changed the perspective of the world. You understand what I'm saying? And I don't think the world really wants a race war. I think because everywhere you go, they screaming Black Lives Matter, whites, green, everywhere. The people that never before had any concern. People before that, we was like, why they don't speak up on our behalf? They ain't saying nothing. Everybody is vocal about what's going on. Everybody is screaming Black Lives Matter. And of course, it's because of fad also, because it's the cool thing to do. But it's also a lot of people that are genuine, like, damn, I just didn't even know this was going on. Like, I never visualized, I never actually was able to see this. So I think we're at a unique time where, to me, I'm not so concerned about the race war, where I'm concerned with the good against bad war. I think it's just good people against bad people at this time. When I'm looking at it, I don't think most white people agree with what's going on. I think there are white supremacists that want to.
I don't think most white, sorry, I cut you off, but I don't think most white people agree. I mean, most white people support it, but I don't think most white people, again, that's an important word you said, most white people. I don't think they are willing to fight against it. And therefore, at some point, they have to choose a side. And guess what? In this particular moment, as you've been saying, those that are responsible for deconstructing the institutional and systemic racism that their own ancestors created are white folks. And there's some that are in the movement, but there's also some that's in the movement that's problematic as fuck. Like, period. They are supposed to be liberal, they're supposed to be progressive, and yet they create more tension and dissension among movements because they still operate off or operate through a white supremacist lens. And what I mean by that is, when you're in these women's organizations where Black women and women of color feel oppressed, even while we're supposed to be working together for liberation, and you out here telling everybody, oh, I believe Black Lives Matter, I'm a white woman that supports the movement, and yet and still the people you work with are being traumatized by your behavior. And as we move to our next topic, when we come to you and say, what are you going to do about a Tatiana Jefferson, Shakisha Clemens, Breonna Taylor? You're not really, where are the white women's organizations right now? I'm talking about with mass movements. I'm not talking about send out a tweet or you posted something. I'm talking about mass movements for Breonna Taylor. Where are they?
Well, that's what I think. Well, I think we're at a unique time where we need to start calling these people out. I think, I think you have a presence, a voice. I think that you have been tasked with the ability, skill level, and the reach to make sure that people understand that. And I want to know that too. Like, where are they? Where are these organizations that's supposed to be about women's rights? Why aren't there, major mass mobilizations and major movements behind Breonna Taylor, with the exception of what it is that, combined with other organizations in her town, Black Lives Matter and other organizations are putting together and organizing behind. Where are they? That pertain to be about women's rights. So it's definitely right, but
I mean, it's an issue. It's an issue. And we have to ask. I mean, people raise so much hell about every move we made within the Women's March. And they said, we were the problem, whatever. I'm not even gonna waste air coming out of my body to repeat the lies and the bullshit that they tried to mount against us with the Women's March. But now we're not there, right? We're not there. Women's
There's
March.
a Women's March. It's still a Women's March.
Obviously they send fundraising emails all the time, and and even
I didn't even know.
Trump.
I thought I thought it was over. I didn't even know it was still an organization.
No, it's still very much. There's a board. There are people there. We left people in charge. We set up the board. We invited many of the folks who are there in the organization now. And we
Did they say something about Breonna Taylor?
I'm sure they probably sent out an email. But again,
was there any action?
And my thing is not even, and which of course I know from when I was one of the strongest Black women voices within the organization from a national perspective, we forced people to deal with Shakisha Clemens. And it still wasn't enough. It still wasn't enough because, what you have to ask is like, where is the Louisville Women's March chapter or one that's in Kentucky? Where are all the neighboring cities? Where's the folks in Indianapolis? Where are the people who, from a Women's March perspective, where are they in terms of coming together to fight for Breonna Taylor? Now, what they will say is, oh, well, it's COVID-19 and whatever. Okay, fine. People want to use that. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't protect yourself. So we can't tell anybody that they're wrong for not hitting the streets. But I'm almost certain that if in this moment, it was something Trump focused, boom, that's all you need. Because I've seen them. I've seen them on the streets. I've seen them on the streets since COVID. And I'm not saying they were organized by the National Women's March. I'm just saying I've seen people with their pink hats on and all of that around other issues, but not for specifically a Black woman. And so when we talk about we're in a race war, I think the way we end this, that I would end it, of course, maybe you won't end it there, but is that we've been in a race war. And that now what's happening is that the actual physical remnants of it is beginning to show up on the streets. And by the way, the murder has been happening, but now it's not just the murder, it's also the response of some people from our communities.
Yeah. When we talk about Breonna Taylor, like I want to first of all commend what you guys did with the campaign. Do you know what happened to Breonna Taylor? Like, that was a really big campaign, man. It touched me just hearing her mother's story. Just, I was there when she said, but just hearing her on that video and just seeing all of those artists and actresses and people of stature in our communities and in our culture just speaking on behalf, man. Like, I just want to say it was dope, man. But we got it. There still has been nothing.
Right.
Like, we still haven't got any level of justice. And it's crazy how disregarded and disrespected the Black woman is. This woman was shot in her home and nobody's even lost a job or anything. Like, shot 8 times through her home. Like, that has to be some level of, malpractice. It's negligence. At least, if nothing else, there was negligence. There's at least it's something for you to say, you are not capable to continue to do this job because your actions led to the death of an innocent person. Right. Your lack of understanding, your lack of professionalism, there was a lot of things lacking there. And if we can't hold the police accountable to make sure that innocent people just don't die, we can't charge them with crimes, and then you still get to keep your job, like, it has something.
Yeah, no, Breonna Taylor's situation is pretty rough. And what we did see happen last week, which we know administrative duty is no longer enough. Like, it was never enough, but we've just said, to hell with that. Don't even bring up administrative leave anymore. So what we did see happen is that the officer who wrote the no-knock warrant and, went to the judge to get the judge to sign off on a no-knock warrant, he lied. He said that the Postal Service had reported suspicious packages going to Breonna Taylor's home. And the Postal Service came out and said they never ever reported that. And in fact, they never witnessed or even assumed or felt that there were suspicious packages going to the home. So
this is criminal activity.
That's criminal activity. He lied to get the no-knock warrant.
That's right.
And so
your lies led to someone losing their life.
That's
and
right.
You still getting paid by taxpayers for killing one of their pride tag. Like, nah, it's just all crazy, man.
They put him on desk duty. And then last week they also passed Breonna's law. After that video came out, and let's just be sure to state that the video done by many celebrities, Tracy Ellis Ross, Cardi B, Alicia Keys and Rhapsody were my co-organizers to get that campaign together. Ellen DeGeneres, I saw Iman did a video, Jada Pinkett, MC Light, who else? Zoe Kravitz. I mean, I don't even want to get in. Lala Anthony, Kelly Rowland. So many women of influence came together for that campaign. Even Kat Trigg, who is our director and producer of this of our podcast, Street Politicians, and also Gandhi Smith Harris. I mean, again, I'm gonna stop because I don't want to get in trouble.
Cardi B.
I said Cardi. Cardi had over 11 million views on her video where we asked, do you know what happened to Breonna Taylor, and provided the information. And the interesting thing, I got to shout out Jamila T. Davis. But and the interesting thing about it is that people want to be like, oh, the influencers made this campaign, made the Breonna Taylor law get passed, because the next day, and one of the action items that I laid out in the video was that for the next day, that people needed to call city council members, especially folks from the local Louisville community, to tell the city council to make sure they pass the Breonna's law, which bans no-knock warrants, the next day. So the campaign went out on Wednesday, and Thursday was the city council vote, in which at the time, they did actually pass Breonna Taylor's law. That's great. Do I think?
Shout out to the people.
Do I think that the video and the campaign that we released had something to do with it? Absolutely. But it's important to note that that's not the end-all be-all. There were people on the ground from BLM Louisville, like you said earlier, ACLU and others, and of course their attorneys, Lanita Baker and Ben Crump, who have been working diligently, and the family advocating for themselves, Janiyah, her sister. So I'm saying all of that to say that this movement is not about any one entity. It's not about celebrity faces that are not also aligned with activists and community organizers. We need every single person, every single body, the lawyers, the young people, the elderly, the wisdom. We need all of that working together to get justice, not just for Breonna Taylor, but for Breonna Taylor's of the past and those to come.
That's right, man. You know, so we're doing the action.
This week marks 100 days since Breonna Taylor was murdered. 100 days. And so on Thursday the 25th, we're going to be joined by a lot of important people, community people, everybody you could think of, but led most of all by Breonna Taylor's family in Frankfort, Kentucky, to demand that the state's attorney file charges against the liars, the abusers, the shooters, every single officer who is responsible for the murder of Breonna Taylor.
That's right. So yeah, we'll be doing that on Thursday. You know, it's just crazy, man. When you look at Breonna Taylor and you look how, you know, we were just, the last few weeks have been so crazy. Like we went from, it started with Breonna Taylor, you know, it started with us going out for Breonna Taylor, and then we ended up at George Floyd at protests, you know, then we're in Atlanta, you know, doing some work there, you know, for our organization. And then Rashard Brooks happens.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, and we see, and you know, and Rashard Brooks' situation broke my heart. Just watching the video, you know, watching his video, him talk about how he wanted to do better and how probation was holding him back. You know, and then you look at the situation, you look at that whole video, you look at this 30, 40 minutes. I was listening to Keisha Lance Bottom, man, Keisha Lance Bottom's talk and said how this shouldn't have happened. You know, like how that 40 minutes, like anything could have happened. You could have took this man home. He was polite. He was respectful. He understood. You know, he wasn't the best. He offered to walk home. You know, and understanding, just looking, being formerly incarcerated, understanding that seriousness of that. He just wanted to get home to his daughter. You know, he did everything right. And when he looked and you heard that video and you heard him speaking about being on probation, how they hold things over your head and there's nobody there to mentor you, nobody there to walk with you. And yeah, you make mistakes and little mistakes, and you know, and they just wait for you to make that mistake. And it's like they holding all of that, and him just coming home from prison and just wanting to do the right thing. And then after he realized that he had said everything he possibly could, like, you know, could you just let me walk home? And to know that this man was going to put cuffs on him and he was going to have to return to that cell away from his family was a level of trauma that nobody understands. Unless you actually been through that, unless you actually have seen somebody knowing that they wanted to do the best they can, and knowing once he put those cuffs on him, somebody was going to violate his probation and he was going to spend time away from his family again. And people don't understand that. They be like, yo, he should have just, why did he resist? He understood the seriousness, and that officer didn't care. He probably did know. He probably ran this idea and seen that he was on probation and decided that he was more comfortable with taking that man's freedom. And, you know, and understanding that moment, like, that really touched me. I was in my bed last night watching his video of what he said, and I was like, wow, man. He wanted to do better. Just even when you heard when he was talking to the officer, he wasn't a wise ass. He was like, yeah, officer, I had a few drinks, you know, but I'm understand, you know, yeah, I know I did something wrong. I understand, but, you know, I walk home. I just want to get home to my daughter. It's a birthday. Like, when you understand that, and that's where the dehumanization comes from for me. Because I know if it had been another white individual, I know if it had been, even if it would have been a black individual, you would have been able to identify with that person. You know, and when they don't see us as human, they don't mind destroying your home. They don't mind destroying your livelihood. They don't mind destroying your reality and just saying, well, you shouldn't have been doing it. We're just going to send you back. You know, then nobody gives you a break. Nobody cares about that. And that man, at that moment when that man was putting that cuffs on his hand, he was just like, I'm not going back to jail. You know, I just not going, but he shouldn't have died. He wasn't supposed to die for that, man. That moment, that situation did not call for that man to lose his life, man. And every time I think about it, it hurt, man. And I'm glad that the officers got charged. And that brings me to I don't get it. You know, officer got charged for murder. You know, everybody clearly seen what he did to that man. The man was running away. And then I heard that the officers in Atlanta were refusing to work yesterday. And I want to know this. What I don't get is, how are you comfortable with watching someone take a life, right? I've never seen none of the police see some, you know, individual in the street, a regular citizen, get killed, or somebody not get charged for a crime and get away, and they decide that they failed their job. But you were willing to quit the job or not fulfill an oath that you signed up for because someone was held accountable for killing a man? Because someone was held accountable. What is your job? What did you sign up for? If these individuals signed up to get away with impunity to kill black people, then they should never be police officers. So I don't get the mind state. The same way with the young man, the officer in Buffalo who was through the old man to the ground, and they were charged. And officers said that they were striking, and they came out and they, you know, applauded. What is the mind state of the individual that is okay with that? You know, and that's what we have. I don't get that. I don't get how you saw somebody shoot a man in the back and you didn't think something was wrong with that. I don't get how you saw your officer throw a man to the ground and his head bleeding and nobody pick him up and then think that they should be charged with that. You know, I just don't get it.
Yeah, I get it. It's a culture. And I think we're in the process of trying to uproot it now. So this has been a good conversation. You know, Street Politicians, second season, we're back. Don't get it twisted. We still don't agree on a lot of things, but in this moment, what we're working on and the state of emergency that we're in, if you don't agree with us with this, then you're probably not somebody that we want to even deal with.
Exactly. This ain't Black people. Get on code. This ain't the time to be at odds.
Yeah.
You got your enemy is your best friend right now. So, you know, lock arms. And right now we in the midst of changing the culture of the world. You know, and we don't have a time to be at odds. So me and her argue another time. But right now, we got work to do, man. So we may not always agree. I might not always be right, and she might not always be wrong, but most of the time she is. But we are always going to be authentic.
Peace.
Peace.
That's how we own it.